Lighten up, it's just a joke, Jake laughed as he drove off, leaving her stranded at a gas station. Sarah Miller, humiliated but determined, never forgot the way he sped out of sight. Years later, Jake was grinning in a crowded restaurant until the door opened. And when Sarah walked in arm in arm with the district attorney, his face drained to white. I'm curious, where in the world are you joining us from? Drop your city or country in the comments, and make sure you're subscribed for all the latest updates. Some jokes scar deeper than knives. The highway stretched endless under the July sun, 2 lanes of cracked asphalt slicing through cornfields. Emily pressed her cheek against the passenger window, watching the blur of green and gold. At 19, she had never been farther than the county fairgrounds, and now she was on a road trip with Ryan, the boy she loved, the boy who promised adventure. Gas tanks low, Ryan muttered, steering the dented blue Honda toward an exit. His smirk flashed as he glanced at her. Don't worry, Em. I got us. The rural gas station looked like it had been forgotten by time. Faded pumps, a flickering neon sign, and a single soda machine humming outside. Ryan pulled up to the farthest pump, cut the engine and stretched with a dramatic groan. Stay here, he said casually, leaning across to peck her cheek. I'll be right back. Emily smiled shyly, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. She watched him stroll inside, his shoulders loose with confidence. She waited. Minutes ticked by. She checked her reflection in the side mirror, smoothed her shirt, and glanced toward the station door. Still no Ryan. Her heart began to thud harder. She opened the glove box, searching for her phone, then froze. Her phone wasn't there. Neither was her wallet. Her suitcase had been tossed out onto the gravel by the pump, half unzipped. The realization hit like a slap. He wasn't coming back. The sun scorched her shoulders as she dragged her suitcase upright, her hands shaking. She stared at the highway, desperate for the sight of his car looping back, headlights cutting through the glare. But the horizon stayed empty. Hours bled into each other. A pair of truckers pulled in, their boots crunching gravel as they fueled their rig. One of them, gray-bearded and kind-eyed, noticed her. You all right, miss? Emily's throat tightened. She wanted to collapse, to sob out the truth, but something inside her locked tight. She straightened, forcing her voice level. I'm fine. Just wait. The truckers exchanged a glance, pity softening their weathered faces. They offered water, even a lift, but Emily shook her head. She couldn't let them see her broken. Not here. Not now. When they drove off, dust trailing behind, silence swallowed her again. Her chest ached with shame. She had given Ryan everything. Her trust, her innocence, her future dreams, and he had repaid her with abandonment, like a cruel punchline. She sank onto her suitcase, her legs trembling, the hot gravel pressing through her jeans. The gas pump loomed beside her, humming faintly, a witness to her humiliation. She pictured Ryan laughing, telling his friends how easy it was to leave her behind. Emily, the girl too naive to see it coming. Tears burned her eyes, but she blinked them back fiercely. No, she wouldn't cry where strangers could see. She wouldn't give Ryan the victory of her breakdown. The sun dipped lower, shadows stretching across the cracked pavement. Her body sagged with exhaustion, but somewhere deep in her chest, a spark refused to die. She whispered it at first, barely audible over the hum of the pump. This isn't where my story ends. Her voice grew steadier, stronger, cutting through the empty lot. This isn't where my story ends. The promise hung in the air, sharp and unyielding. Emily swears silently. This isn't where my story ends. A stranger's kindness filled the tank of my empty hope. By the time twilight fell, the gas station's fluorescent lights buzzed like tired bees. Emily sat stiff on her suitcase, her body aching, her pride raw. The few customers who came and went pretended not to notice the abandoned girl by the pump. Headlights swept across the cracked pavement, and an old maroon minivan pulled up. The engine sputtered before going quiet. Out stepped a woman in her 50s, her hair streaked with silver, her frame sturdy in a floral blouse and denim skirt. She filled her tank quickly, humming under her breath, before her gaze caught Emily. The woman frowned, wiping her hands on a paper towel. Honey, she called gently. Are you waiting on someone? Emily stiffened, words catching in her throat. She wanted to lie. Say yes, say he'd be right back, say she wasn't the kind of girl who got left. But the woman's eyes, steady and warm, didn't allow for false bravado. Emily swallowed hard. I think he's not coming back. The woman's lips pressed tight, not with judgment, but with compassion. She walked closer, her steps unhurried. You been out here long? Emily nodded, her voice barely a whisper. Since this afternoon. The woman sighed softly, shaking her head. My name's Rosa. What's yours? Emily. Well, Emily, it's too late for you to be sitting out here alone. Come on. Let me get you something to eat. Emily hesitated, hugging her suitcase like armor. Strangers weren't safe. That's what her mother used to say. But Rosa's eyes, clear, unflinching, felt different. They weren't prying or pitying. They were steady, like she had known what it was to be left behind too. Emily rose slowly, her knees unsteady. Rosa reached out, not grabbing, just offering. Emily accepted. Inside the minivan, the seats smelled faintly of lavender and coffee. A thermos rattled in the cup holder, and the floor was littered with grocery bags. Rosa glanced at Emily with a small smile. Seat belt. Safety first. The simple motherly tone cracked something inside Emily. She clicked the buckle, her chest tight. They drove in silence at first, the road stretching dark beneath the headlights. Finally, Rosa asked, You want to tell me what happened? Emily's throat burned, but words spilled anyway. We were on a trip. He said he'd be right back. He left me there, with my suitcase. Like it was funny. Rosa's grip tightened on the wheel, her knuckles white. That's not funny, sweetheart. That's cruelty. Emily blinked fast, her voice breaking. I trusted him. He was everything to me. Rosa glanced over, her expression fierce. Then leave him in your past, like he left you. A man who treats you like that doesn't deserve a single mile of your road. The words struck deep, sharp but healing. Emily pressed her lips together, nodding slow. Rosa softened, her voice gentle again. I've got a couch you can sleep on tonight. Safe roof, warm food, no expectations, just a place to breathe. Emily hesitated, torn between shame and gratitude. Finally, she whispered, Thank. When they pulled into Rosa's driveway, a modest white house with flower pots on the porch, Emily felt something she hadn't since that morning. Safety. Rosa unlocked the door, motioned her inside, and the scent of baked bread wrapped around her like a blanket. Rosa set a plate on the table, chicken, rice and beans, and poured Emily a glass of water. Eat. Tomorrow we'll talk about what's next. Emily sat, the first bite, nearly undoing her with comfort. For the first time all day, tears fell freely, but Rosa didn't look away. She just sat nearby, humming again, letting Emily grieve. After dinner, Rosa gestured toward the hallway. Guest rooms taken, but the couch pulls out. Sheets are clean. You'll sleep safe tonight. Emily sank into the couch's softness, exhaustion tugging her Her last thought before sleep was that kindness could come from nowhere, like a light on a dark road. Morning sun streamed through the curtains. Rosa bustled in the kitchen, whistling softly. Then a male voice drifted into the living room, warm and curious. Mom, who's our guest? Emily sat up, startled. A tall young man with dark hair and kind eyes stood in the doorway, smiling politely. Rosa introduces Emily to her son, Daniel. One man abandoned me. Another noticed me. Emily rubbed her eyes as she sat upright on the pull-out couch, still wrapped in the blanket Rosa had given her. The aroma of coffee drifted from the kitchen, mingling with the sound of quiet humming. For a fleeting second, she almost forgot where she was. Then she saw him. A young man leaned against the doorway, tall with dark hair that curled at the edges, his sleeves rolled up to his elbows. His smile was gentle but curious. Morning, he said. I'm Daniel. Mom told me we had company. Emily felt heat rush to her cheeks. She smoothed her hair, suddenly self-conscious. I'm Emily. Daniel nodded, his gaze steady, kind but not prying. Welcome. Hope the couch wasn't too rough. She shook her head quickly. It was fine. Better than. She stopped herself. Better than a gas station parking lot. Her throat tightened. Rosa appeared with 2 steaming mugs, setting one on the table beside Emily. Don't let her fool you, Daniel. She was out cold within 5 minutes. Emily managed a small smile, grateful for Rosa's way of softening the air. Sit, Rosa told her son. Join us for breakfast. We've got pancakes. At the table, Emily felt awkward at first, her hands folded in her lap, unsure where to fit into this family rhythm. But Daniel carried the conversation easily, talking about the new cafe he and his mother liked downtown, about his long hours at a small startup he'd founded with a couple of friends. Startups are messy, he admitted with a laugh. But I like the chaos. Building something from scratch, it feels alive. Emily listened quietly, something stirring inside her. She'd spent so long shrinking herself around Ryan, afraid to speak too loudly or dream too big. But Daniel spoke of his goals with such fire that she couldn't help but feel pulled in. When Rosa stepped out to answer the phone, the room grew quieter. Daniel leaned forward slightly. So, how did you end up here? Emily hesitated, her fingers tightening around her mug. Shame prickled. But Daniel's eyes weren't sharp with curiosity. They were patient, waiting. My boyfriend, she said finally, her voice low. We were on a trip. He left me. At a gas station. Daniel blinked, stunned. Left you? She nodded, her chest burning. He thought it was funny. I waited for hours before your mom found me. For a long moment, Daniel said nothing. Then his jaw tightened, his voice low with disbelief. That's not funny. That's cruel. The word hung heavy between them. Emily's eyes welled, but she blinked quickly. I guess I should have seen it coming. Daniel shook his head firmly. No one deserves that. That's on him, not you. Something in his tone, sure, unwavering, soothed a part of her that had been raw since yesterday. She breathed easier, though her voice trembled. Thanks. He softened, leaning back. You don't have to thank me for basic decency. By the time Rosa returned, the tension had eased. Over dinner that evening, they laughed more easily, Daniel recounting a story about trying to fix the garage door and nearly trapping himself inside, Rosa teasing him about burning toast as a child. Emily found herself smiling, even laughing, and for the first time in what felt like forever, the sound didn't feel foreign. As dishes clinked and conversation flowed, Rosa glanced between them with a small knowing smile. She saw something beginning to bloom, though neither of them could name it yet. When the plates were cleared, Daniel turned to Emily. Listen, he said, his voice lighter now. We could use an extra hand at my startup. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. What do you think? Emily blinked, caught off guard. No one had ever asked her to build something before, only to follow, to obey, to shrink. Her chest fluttered with both nerves and hope. Daniel offers Emily a job at his small startup. I wasn't lost. I was being rebuilt. The office was nothing like Emily had imagined. Instead of polished desks and buzzing employees, Daniel's startup occupied the back of a repurposed hardware store. Exposed brick lined the walls, the floor smelled faintly of sawdust, and folding tables doubled as workstations. 3 laptops hummed, wires snaked everywhere, and a whiteboard covered in scribbles leaned precariously against the wall. Emily hesitated at the doorway, clutching her borrowed notebook. This is your company? Daniel laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. Yeah, glamorous, right? We're building a platform for local businesses, connecting them with resources, kind of like a digital town square. To Emily it sounded complicated and foreign, but Daniel's enthusiasm was infectious. His 2 partners waved hello, welcoming her like an old friend, not a stray girl rescued from a gas station. Her first days were awkward. She stumbled over terms she didn't understand, fumbled with spreadsheets and worried she was slowing everyone down. But Daniel never snapped, never mocked. Instead, he leaned over her shoulder, pointing out shortcuts, praising small wins. You've got a good eye, he said, one evening, as they reviewed a draft of their outreach letter. The way you worded this, it's clear, confident. That mattered. Emily flushed, unsure how to take the compliment. With Ryan, her words had always been brushed aside, dismissed as silly. Here they were valued. Days turned into weeks. Emily found rhythm in answering emails, organizing data, brainstorming with the team. She grew bolder in meetings, offering suggestions. Sometimes Daniel would glance at her mid-conversation, eyes shining with pride, and it sent a warmth through her she hadn't felt in years. Nights stretched long. The 4 of them ate pizza on the office floor, scribbled plans under fluorescent light, and laughed when the Wi-Fi cut out mid-presentation. Somewhere in those late nights, Emily realized she wasn't haunted by the gas station anymore. She was too busy building something real. One evening, Daniel found her hunched over the whiteboard, red marker in hand, mapping out an idea for community workshops. He watched quietly for a moment, then said, "You know you've got a knack for this." Emily turned, startled. "For what?" "Leadership," he said simply. "You take in all the moving pieces, and you make them make sense. That's not easy." Her instinct was to shake her head, to deny it, but Daniel's expression held no doubt, no teasing, just truth. For the first time, she let herself believe him. At Rosa's kitchen table later that night, Emily sat with her textbooks open. Daniel had convinced her to enroll in part-time business classes at the community college. "If you're going to lead," he had told her, "you should have the tool." The lessons were hard, but Emily found herself hungry for them. Each page she read, each concept she grasped, chipped away at the timid girl Ryan had left behind. Rosa often watched from the doorway, smiling. "He's bringing something out of you," she said one evening, as she poured tea. Emily looked up from her notes, cheeks warming. "Maybe, but I think it was always there. I just didn't know how to see it." Weeks turned into months. The startup gained traction, their client list expanding. Emily's voice carried weight in meetings now. Her ideas shaped strategy. She no longer shrank at the sound of her own opinion. Instead, she sat taller, steadier. But the true test came one Friday night when a crisis hit. A software glitch that threatened to derail a client's launch. Panic buzzed in the office as everyone talked over each. Emily stood, heart hammering, and raised her voice. "Stop." The room quieted. "Here's what we're going to do," she said firmly. Dividing tasks, setting a timeline. Her instructions were clear, her tone unwavering. By dawn, the glitch was fixed. The launch saved. Daniel leaned against the doorway, watching her rally the team. Pride lit his features. "You don't even see it, do you?" he said softly when the crisis passed. "See what?" she asked, wiping sweat from her brow. "That you're not just helping me, you're leading this with me." Her pulse quickened. "You mean?" Daniel smiled, extending his hand. "Emily, will you be my partner? Not just in work, in this business." Daniel asks her to be his partner in the business. "He left me with nothing. I built something greater." The years unfolded like bricks, stacking into a foundation. What began as 4 folding tables in a dusty backroom grew into a full-fledged business. The hum of laptops gave way to the buzz of dozens of voices, keyboards clacking in rhythm, phones ringing with new orders. Emily walked through the office one spring morning, clipboard in hand, her steps confident. Employees greeted her with nods and smiles. She stopped by a desk, offering encouragement to a new hire, then ducked into the conference room where Daniel was finalizing a presentation. "Ready?" he asked, his grin wide. "As I'll ever be," Emily replied. They presented together, fluid, in sync, a rhythm polished over years of collaboration. Clients trusted them, employees respected them, and the town whispered about how Emily, the quiet girl who'd once been stranded at a gas station, had become a leader. It wasn't just business that flourished. Emily flourished. She learned to trust her instincts, to walk into a room without shrinking. She no longer measured her worth by Ryan's cruelty. She measured it by the opportunities she created for herself, for others, for the community that rallied around them. Rosa often watched with quiet pride. On Saturdays, she'd host family dinners, her table crowded with staff who had become friends, neighbors who had become supporters. Emily would catch Rosa's gaze across the table, the older woman's smile soft, her eyes shining. One evening, as they cleared plates, Rosa squeezed Emily's hand. "Do you see what you've built? You turned ashes into a home for others." Emily's throat tightened. "We built it," she said softly, glancing at Daniel, who was laughing with one of the employees. Her relationship with Daniel had deepened slowly, natural. Late nights at the office turned into walks home together. Planning strategies blurred into sharing dreams. When he brushed a stray curl from her face one evening, neither of them pulled away. Their first kiss was tentative, but certain, the kind that made Emily feel anchored, not abandoned. Years passed, and their bond only grew stronger. They were partners in every sense, building, dreaming, carrying each other through setbacks. The girl who had once been left behind was now part of a team that no storm could shake. The community noted. Whispers spread. She was the one left at the pump. Look at her now. By the time they expanded to a second office, Emily's name carried weight in town meetings and business circles. People looked to her not as a victim, but as a visionary. It all led to one spring evening. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. Daniel drove them down a familiar stretch of highway, his hands steady on the wheel. Emily leaned against the window, the landscape blurring in warm colors. "Where are we going?" she asked, half smiling. "You'll see," he said, his voice tinged with nerves. They pulled into a gravel lot, and Emily froze. The gas station. The same cracked pumps, the same flickering sign. Time had dulled its colors, but the memory rushed back sharp as glass. Her chest tightened. "Daniel, why here?" He took her hand gently, leading her to the very pump where her tears had once fallen. He knelt, the gravel crunching beneath his knee. A small box appeared in his hand, the diamond catching the last rays of sunlight. "Emily," he said softly, his voice steady but his eyes glistening, "no one will ever leave you again, not as long as I live." The world seemed to blur, the pumps, the gravel, the years of pain, all fading behind the brilliance of the moment. "Yes," she whispered, tears falling freely this time, not from sorrow but from joy. "Yes." Applause broke out. Onlookers, strangers fueling their cars, cheered as though they had been waiting for this moment too. Emily pressed her palm against the pump, the same cold metal that had once witnessed her humiliation, but now it bore her triumph. News of their engagement spreads, and Ryan hears of it. The place of my humiliation became the place of my triumph. Emily could barely hear over the rush in her ears. Daniel knelt at the exact spot where her life had splintered years ago, by the gas pump where Ryan had tossed her suitcase and driven away. The gravel under Daniel's knee, the faint hum of the pump, the smell of gasoline, it was all the same, but the meaning was transformed. "Emily," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands, "this is where your story almost ended. But it didn't. You kept walking. You built something beautiful. You built us." He opened the small velvet box, the diamond catching the sunset. "No one will ever leave you again, not as long as I live. Will you marry me?" For a heartbeat, Emily stood frozen, the past and present colliding. She saw herself at 19 trembling, humiliated, abandoned, and now at 25, she stood taller, steadier, loved. Tears blurred her vision, but her voice rang clear. "Yes." The word broke from her chest like freedom. Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger, his hands warm against her skin. She pulled him up and kissed him, and the crowd that had gathered, strangers fueling their cars, a delivery driver leaning out his window, burst into applause. A teenage girl by the soda machine clapped furiously, whispering to her friend, "That's so romantic." Emily laughed through her tears, overwhelmed by the symmetry of it all. She pressed her palm to the pump, the cold steel grounding her. Years ago, this pump had witnessed her lowest moment. Now it bore witness to her victory. "This place doesn't own me anymore," she whispered, more to herself than to anyone else. Daniel wrapped his arms around her. "No, love, you own it now." They drove home in a flurry of congratulations and honking horns from strangers who'd seen the proposal. Rosa was waiting on the porch, and when Daniel announced the news, she covered her mouth with both hands, tears spilling over her cheek. "My girl," Rosa said, pulling Emily into a fierce hug. "I knew one day you'd stand taller than the pain." Emily felt it deep in her bones. Rosa wasn't just proud, she was family. The next week, word spread quickly. Engagement photos, Daniel lifting Emily off her feet by the pumps, Emily laughing with the ring glinting, circulated on social media. Local papers ran the story of the gas station proposal. Strangers stopped Emily in the grocery store to congratulate her. She had turned her humiliation into triumph, her broken past into something worth celebrating. But triumph doesn't stay secret for long. Miles away, in a cluttered apartment with peeling wallpaper and a stack of unpaid bills, Ryan scrolled his phone lazily. His thumb froze on a photo. Emily, radiant, standing at the same gas station where he had once left her, a diamond on her finger, Daniel's arm wrapped around her. The headline blared, "Gas Station Love Story from Abandoned Teen to Entrepreneur Bride-to-Be." Ryan's laugh was sharp, bitter. "No way. The gas station girl. Impossible." He zoomed in on her smile, on the ring, on the man beside her. His smirk faltered, his jaw tightened. That old familiar ego stirred. He had left her as a joke. She wasn't supposed to rise from it. She wasn't supposed to shine brighter without him. He tossed the phone onto the couch, pacing. "She thinks she's better than me now? We'll see about that." News of their engagement spreads, and Ryan hears of it. Ghosts don't vanish, they knock. Ryan stared at the glowing phone screen long after the article had loaded. Emily's smile beamed back at him, brighter than he remembered. her hand proudly raised to show off the ring. Daniel's arm was around her waist, protective and sure. Together they looked like something out of a magazine spread. His laugh was sharp and hollow. The gas station girl, famous now. Please. He downed the last of his beer and tossed the can into the pile on the floor. His apartment reeked of stale smoke and failure, exactly the kind of life he swore he'd never end up with. He had once promised himself big things, business school, a flashy car, friends who envied him. Instead, at 28, he was barely holding down a job at an auto parts store with no real friends left to call. But Emily, sweet, quiet Emily, had gone and built an empire. Ryan scrolled deeper into the article. It praised Emily's rise, her role in building a community business, her engagement to Daniel. Photos of ribbon cuttings, charity events, and community dinners filled the page. Emily wasn't just surviving, she was thriving. A hot sting of jealousy licked at his chest. He slammed the phone onto the table, muttering, "She was nothing when I left her, nothing." But the words didn't sound convincing, not even to himself. For hours he brooded. He replayed that day at the gas station in his head, how light he'd felt speeding off, her small figure shrinking in the rearview mirror. His friends had roared with laughter when he told them, "Man, you actually left her. That's savage." Back then it had felt like power. Now it felt like the punchline had turned against him. Curiosity curdled into obsession. He searched her social media, scrolling through photos of her speaking at events, smiling with employees, her hand always clasped in Daniel's. Ryan's smirk soured as he saw the comments. Inspiration. What a power couple. Goals. Power couple, he muttered, disgust dripping from the words. The more he scrolled, the more his pride cracked. He could almost hear his old friends, if they saw her now. "Hey, isn't that the girl you dumped? She's way out of your league now." His chest tightened. He couldn't stand it. By midnight, he was pacing the apartment, his mind buzzing. "She owes me," he said aloud, though no one was there to hear it. "If it wasn't for me, she wouldn't be this. I made her tough. She should thank me." But the thought rang hollow. Deep down, Ryan wasn't thinking about gratitude. He was thinking about control. He couldn't accept that Emily had escaped his orbit, that she had found happiness without him. The next morning, his phone buzzed again. Another article, this one about Emily and Daniel's upcoming wedding, complete with photos of the engagement at the very gas station he'd abandoned her. Ryan's stomach twisted. He stared at the pump in the picture, the same one where he had once tossed her suitcase onto the ground. The irony burned. His lips curled into a bitter grin. "All right, Emily, you think you're untouchable now? We'll see how you look me in the eye." He grabbed his jacket, his reflection catching in the cracked bathroom mirror. His own eyes startled him. Bloodshot, hollow, desperate, but he ignored it. For the first time in years, Ryan felt a surge of purpose. Not noble purpose, not love, but ego. Ryan decides to confront her face to face. "The past walked into my present, but I wasn't alone anymore." The community hall buzzed with warmth that Saturday evening. Strings of lights twinkled overhead, and the scent of roasted chicken drifted from buffet tables, lined with homemade dishes. Emily moved gracefully between clusters of donors and neighbors, her hand light on Daniel's arm as she introduced herself, thanked them, listened to their story. This was her element now, confidence wrapped in kindness. Every handshake, every smile felt earned. Daniel leaned close, whispering, "You're glowing tonight." Emily laughed softly, her nerves easing. "So are you." They clinked glasses of sparkling cider, a quiet celebration of how far they'd come. And then she saw him, Ryan. He stood near the entrance, leaning casually against the doorframe, as though he belonged. His hair was shorter, his face more angular, but his smirk was the same. He scanned the room until his eyes locked on hers. His grin widened. Emily's chest tight for a heartbeat, the room tilted, memories flooding back, the sun beating down at the gas station, the weight of her suitcase, the endless hours of waiting. She clenched her glass tighter, grounding herself. Ryan pushed off the wall and strode forward with false confidence, his voice carrying just enough for people nearby to hear. "Well, if it isn't the girl I left at the pump." The words sliced through the hum of conversation. Heads turned, whispers rippled. Emily's breath caught, but she held her ground. Her pulse raced, yet she refused to shrink. Daniel stepped instantly between them, his hand firm on Emily's shoulder, his eyes locked on Ryan, protective, unyielding. "That's enough," he said evenly. Ryan chuckled, feigning amusement. Relax. I'm just saying hello. Long time, no see, huh? Emily? His tone dripped with condescension, but Emily noticed something else in his eyes. Surprise. He had expected her to falter, to cower. Instead, she straightened, her shoulders squaring, her chin lifting. The old Emily, the one who had once begged silently for his return, was gone. Guests around them exchanged uneasy glances, some frowning at Ryan's words. The air thickened with tension, but also with curiosity. Emily inhaled slowly, steadying herself. She placed her hand gently over Daniel's, signaling she could handle this. Then she looked Ryan dead in the eyes. Yes, she said, her voice calm, steady, and cutting. I remember, and I thank you. Ryan blinked, thrown. Thank me? Emily's lips curved into the faintest smile. You left me at a gas station. You thought it was the end of me, but it was the beginning. Every step I've taken since then brought me here to this life, this love, this family. So yes, Ryan, thank you. The crowd fell silent, absorbing her words. A murmur rose. Admiration, approval, a current shifting firmly in her favor. Ryan's smirk faltered. He opened his mouth to retort, but no words came. For the first time, he looked unsettled, like a man who had lost control of his own story. Daniel's grip on her shoulder tightened slightly, a silent gesture of pride. Emily held Ryan's gaze, unwavering. She wasn't 19 anymore. She wasn't waiting by the pump. She was standing tall, and the power was hers. Emily looks Ryan dead in the eyes. Yes, and I thank you. What once destroyed me became my foundation. The room had gone silent after Emily's words, all eyes fixed on her, waiting. Ryan shifted uncomfortably, his smirk fading, as though the ground beneath him had tilted. Emily took a step forward, her voice calm but strong. Yes, Ryan left me at a gas station. Alone, with nothing but a suitcase and humiliation. He thought it was funny. He thought I'd stay broken. Whispers rippled through the crowd. A woman near the buffet clapped a hand over her mouth. Emily's chest rose and fell steadily. But here's what happened instead. I was found. Not by him, not by anyone cruel, but by people who saw me, who believed in me. Rosa gave me a home. Daniel gave me a chance. And together, we built something I never thought possible. Her gaze swept the room, catching eyes one by one. So when Ryan left me, he didn't ruin me. He revealed me. That moment wasn't the end. It was the beginning. A murmur of approval spread among the guests. A few nodded, some even smiled with encouragement. Ryan barked a laugh, hollow and strained. Oh, come on. You're seriously turning this into some inspirational speech? You're making me the villain in your sob story. Emily didn't flinch. You don't need my help to look like a villain, Ryan. You did that yourself. Gasps, followed by a few chuckles, filled the air. Ryan's face red. Daniel stepped closer, sliding an arm protectively around Emily's waist. His voice carried across the room, steady and proud. For those who don't know, this incredible woman beside me isn't just my fiancée, she's my partner. In life, and in the business we built together. Every success I've had, every dream we've realized, has her fingerprints all over it. Applause erupted, rolling like thunder. Emily's cheeks warmed, not from embarrassment, but from the sheer force of support surrounding her. She caught Rosa's eyes across the room, the older woman beaming through tears. Ryan stood stiffly, fists clenched, his attempt at control crumbling. He looked like an intruder in a place that had no room for him anymore. From the back of the hall, a woman in glasses and a tailored blazer raised her hand. Excuse me, she called, her voice carrying. My name is Claire Simmons. I'm a journalist with the Daily Chronicle. Ms. Parker, I'd like to feature your story. The room buzzed anew. Emily blinked, stunned. My story. Claire stepped forward, her notebook in hand. Yes, a young woman abandoned, who turned cruelty into strength, who built a thriving community business, and found love along the way. That's not just a story, it's a beacon. People need to hear it. Emily's breath caught, her pulse racing. She had spent years burying her humiliation, working to rewrite herself quietly. Now someone wanted the whole world to see her rise. Before she could answer, Ryan snarled, "You've got to be kidding me. You're going to turn her into some kind of hero. Without me, she'd still be nobody. I made her tough. She should be thanking me. But the crowd didn't buy it. Gasps and scoffs met his words. A man muttered, "Unbelievable." A woman shook her head. "He actually thinks that." Emily exhaled slowly, steadying herself. She looked directly at Claire, her voice clear. "If telling my story helps even one person believe they can rise after being left behind, then yes, I'll share it." The applause that followed was deafening. Ryan's face twisted, humiliation burning deep. He shoved through the crowd, knocking a chair sideways, and stormed toward the exit. The door slammed behind him, the echo drowned by clapping. A journalist in the crowd asks to feature Emily's story. "They mocked me as a victim. The world saw me as a victim." The article dropped on a Tuesday morning. Emily sat at her kitchen table, coffee cooling beside her, scrolling through the digital front page of the Daily Chronicle. Her face filled the screen, bright smile, diamond ring catching the sun, Daniel's arm around her shoulder. The headline read, "From gas station abandonment to entrepreneurial success, Emily Parker's journey of resilience." Her stomach fluttered as she skimmed the piece. Claire Simmons had captured everything. The betrayal, the rescue, the years of rebuilding, the love story. Every word painted Emily not as a girl, left behind, but as a woman who refused to be defined by cruelty. By noon, her phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Emails, messages, notifications poured in. Former classmates wrote, "You're incredible." Strangers messaged, "Your story gave me hope." Women shared their own experiences of abandonment, thanking her for showing them another ending was possible. Daniel leaned over her shoulder, grinning, "You've started something bigger than us." Emily exhaled, half laughing, half terrified. "I didn't expect that. I just wanted to tell the truth." "And the truth," Daniel said, pressing a kiss to her temple, "is exactly what people needed." Within weeks, their business was flooded with new interest. Clients reached out, investors called, and community leaders invited Emily to speak at events. She wasn't just known locally anymore. She was becoming a name across the state, then across the country. One evening, Rosa joined them at the office, watching as Emily balanced phone calls and meetings with practiced grace. "Look at you," Rosa said softly. "You've gone from waiting at a pump to fueling an entire community." Emily squeezed her hand. "I couldn't have done it without you." But the biggest surprise came in the form of letters. Not emails, handwritten letters that piled on her desk. Women who had been abandoned, men who had been betrayed, young people struggling with shame. They wrote about how Emily's story made them feel seen. Some called her brave, others called her a lifeline. One letter read, "I was left by my fiancé the night before our wedding. Reading about you made me believe my life isn't over. Thank you." Emily wiped tears from her cheeks as she read it aloud to Daniel. She realized then that her pain had been alchemized into something greater, a beacon for others. With Daniel's encouragement, Emily launched a foundation dedicated to supporting abandoned women, offering shelter, counseling, and job opportunities. She called it the Rising Foundation. Donations poured in, fueled by her stories. The same pumps that once marked her humiliation now symbolized rebirth. She had taken the cruelest joke and turned it into fire that warmed others. Meanwhile, Ryan's name began to circulate in a very different way. Online discussions framed him as a cautionary tale, the man who thought abandonment was funny, and ended up the punchline himself. Emily didn't seek revenge. She didn't need to. The contrast between them was enough. She was the story people celebrated. He was the shadow they mocked. Late one evening, as Emily sorted through foundation proposals, Daniel entered the office with an envelope in hand. "This just came." Inside was a gold-embossed invitation. Emily's eyes widened as she read aloud. "The National Women in Leadership Council requests your presence at the annual awards gala. You've been nominated for the Resilience in Leadership Award." Daniel's grin stretched ear to ear. "Emily Parker, you're about to be on a stage you deserve." Emily pressed the invitation to her chest, her heart racing. For a moment, she thought of that 19-year-old girl, sitting on her suitcase by the pump, fighting back tears. If only she could whisper to that girl, "Hold on. Your story isn't ending here. It's just beginning." Emily receives an award invitation for leadership. The girl at the gas station became the woman at the podium. The ballroom glowed beneath crystal chandeliers. Gold-trimmed tables stretched across the room, filled with leaders, activists, and entrepreneurs from every corner of the country. Photographers lined the back wall, their cameras flashing in bursts of light. Emily stood near the entrance, her gown a deep sapphire that shimmered as she moved. Daniel adjusted her necklace with a tender smile. "You're going to own this stage," he whispered. Her palms were damp, her heart pounding, but his steady gaze anchored her. Rosa joined them, elegant in a silver dress, eyes brimming with pride. "My girl," she said softly, "this is your moment." When Emily's name was announced, the applause thundered. She walked to the stage, every step echoing in her ears. At the podium, she paused, looking out at hundreds of faces waiting to hear her. For a heartbeat, she saw the gas station again, the cracked pavement, the flickering light, the cold pump beneath her hand, and then she saw herself reflected in the crystal chandeliers, radiant, unbroken. Her voice rang clear. "I was 19 when I was abandoned at a gas station, left with nothing but a suitcase and silence. That night, I thought my story had ended, but what I didn't know was that it had just begun." The audience leaned forward, drawn into her truth. "I was rescued by a stranger's kindness. I rebuilt my life with resilience and love. And I learned this: cruelty doesn't define us. What defines us is how we rise from, how we turn humiliation into strength, abandonment into belonging." Murmurs of agreement rippled across the ballroom. Some wiped tears discreetly, others nodded vigorously. Emily's eyes found Rosa and Daniel in the front row. "I stand here tonight, not as the girl who was left behind, but as the woman who rose because of the people who chose to see me, believe in me, and walk with me. To anyone who has ever been left, betrayed, or silenced, I promise you this: your story is not over. You are not finished." The room erupted into applause, rising like a wave. Cameras flashed, capturing her tears and her smile. The ovation rolled on until Emily stepped back, humbled but proud. The award was placed in her hands. Sleek glass, etched with her name, Emily Parker, Resilience in Leadership. She lifted it high, the applause swelling again. Daniel stood as the crowd gave her a standing ovation. Rosa clutched a handkerchief, weeping openly. Emily felt a surge of gratitude so powerful it almost knocked her off her feet. In that moment, the girl at the gas station ceased to exist. Only the woman at the podium remained. After the ceremony, reporters swarmed, microphones angled toward her as questions flew. "Emily, how does it feel? What's next for your foundation? What message do you have for young women?" Emily answered calmly, graciously, her words carrying the same conviction as her speech. Daniel's hand stayed at her back, steadying her. Rosa glowed beside them, her smile unshakable. But as the crowd thinned and the ballroom emptied, Emily felt a prickle on the back of her neck. She turned, scanning the dimly lit edges of the room. There, half hidden near the bar, Ryan. His posture slouched, his suit wrinkled, a drink in his hand. He wasn't smirking now. His face was pale, almost ashen, his eyes hollow as they fixed on her. Emily's chest tightened, not with fear, but with recognition. He looked like a man drowning, gasping at the surface while the world moved on without him. A familiar figure lurks at the back. Ryan again. Some men can't accept the mirror of their failure. The bar smelled of whiskey and regret. Ryan hunched over a chipped counter, swirling amber liquid in his glass. His reflection in the mirror behind the bottles looked older than 28 lines etched deep from bitterness. Eyes bloodshot from too many late nights. "Can you believe it?" he slurred to the bartender, who had long stopped listening. "That girl, Emily Parker, left her at a gas station once. Now she's some kind of hero." He let out a harsh laugh. "They're giving her awards for being abandoned." "Awards?" The bartender grunted, uninterested. Ryan's words grew louder. "She should be thanking me. Without me, she'd still be some nobody. I made her tough. I gave her her story." A couple at the end of the bar shot him a look of disgust. One whispered, "What a loser." The words stung, cutting deeper than he let on. Ryan slammed his glass down. "You'll see," he muttered, though no one was asking. "She owes me." But when he staggered home to his dingy apartment, peeling wallpaper and unpaid bills greeted him. Silence pressed in, suffocating. He scrolled through photos of Emily online, her radiant on stage. Daniel proud at her side, Rosa glowing with maternal pride. Every image was salt in his wounds. He couldn't escape the truth. The girl he had left behind had left him in the past, jealousy twisted into desperation. He grabbed a pen and paper, scrawling furiously. Emily, everyone thinks you're so perfect now. They don't know the truth. They don't know I made you who you are. Without me, you'd be nothing. You should thank me for leaving you. You should give me credit. Because without my joke, you wouldn't be standing on those stages. Don't forget who created you. He read it back, his hand shaking. The words were venom, but they made him feel powerful. For a fleeting moment, he stuffed the letter into an envelope, sealing it like it was a dagger. Days later, the letter arrived at Emily's doorstep. She opened it at her kitchen table, Daniel beside her. Her eyes scanned the jagged handwriting, the bitter accusations. Each line dripped with entitlement, as if Ryan believed he still held ownership over her life. Daniel's jaw tightened. The nerve of him. Want me to handle this? Emily shook her head slowly. A smile, small, then widening, spread across her face. She reached for the lighter Daniel kept in the drawer, flicked it to life, and held the edge of the paper to the flame. The words curled black, then crumbled into ash. Without him, Emily said softly, almost to herself, I became everything. Daniel watched her, awe flickering in his eyes. You've turned even his poison into power. The ashes fluttered into the sink, carried away with a rinse of water. Gone. Emily exhaled, lighter now, as if burning the letter had burned away the last trace of Ryan's hold over her. That night, she lay in bed beside Daniel, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, she felt wholly free, untethered to the past, unburdened by scars. Her life was her own, carved from resilience, built from love. But Ryan's shadow wasn't gone yet. In his apartment, empty bottles littered the floor as he sat hunched on the couch, hands trembling. The letter had failed to break her. He'd seen her on the news again that night, her smile brighter than ever, the award gleaming in her hands. He muttered to himself, voice raw, she laughs at me now, thinks I don't matter, but she'll see me again. She has to. His reflection in the darkened TV screen stared back, gaunt and desperate. A man undone by his own cruelty. She burns the letter, whispering, without you I became everything. The gas station girl walked down the aisle. The church bells rang bright against the clear blue sky. Guests filled the pews, their voices a soft hum of anticipation. White ribbons lined the aisles, and sunlight streamed through stained glass, scattering colors across the polished wooden floor. Emily stood at the back, her veil resting lightly against her shoulders, her dress a cascade of ivory lace that shimmered when she moved. Her reflection in the vestibule mirror startled her, not because she didn't recognize herself, but because she did. For the first time, she saw a woman. Rosa approached, tears shining in her eyes. She wore a pale lavender gown, a corsage pinned carefully to her shoulder. She reached for Emily's hands, squeezing them firmly. I never thought I'd have this honor, Rosa whispered, her voice breaking. But today I'm proud to give you away. Emily's eyes filled. You saved me once. You gave me a home. Walking me down that aisle is only fitting. Together they stepped into the light. The music swelled. Soft piano, followed by a violin's tender note. Heads turned as Emily entered the sanctuary. Gasps rippled, not just at the beauty of her gown, but at the radiance she carried. Daniel stood at the altar, his suit crisp, his expression one of unshakable devotion. The moment he saw her, his eyes glistened, and his lips parted as though the sight of her stole his breath. Each step down the aisle was a step away from the girl left at a gas station, and toward the woman who had built her life anew. Emily's grip on Rosa's hand tightened, not out of fear but gratitude. When they reached the front, Rosa kissed Emily's cheek and placed her hand into Daniel. Take care of her, she whispered. Always, Daniel promised, his voice thick with emotion. The ceremony began, the pastor's words weaving around them like a blessing. Vows were exchanged, promises forged with tears and laughter. Daniel's voice shook as he said, no one will ever leave you again. Not as long as I live. Emily's reply was steady, strong, and I will never forget the love that built me back whole. When the pastor declared them husband and wife, Daniel kissed her gently, reverently. The church erupted with cheers and applause, bells tolling overhead as if the heavens themselves joined the celebration. Outside, Sunlight bathed the newlyweds. Guests threw flower petals, their laughter carrying through the warm air. Emily clutched Daniel's hand, her ring catching the light, her heart soaring higher than the bells above. She looked around at the sea of smiling faces. Friends, employees, donors, neighbors, her chosen family, all gathered to honor not just her marriage, but her journey. For a brief, perfect moment, the world felt whole, but shadows lurked even on the brightest days. Near the back of the crowd, a guest leaned toward another, whispering. Emily caught only fragments, but the words were enough. "Isn't that him? The man who left her years ago." Emily's breath caught. Her eyes scanned the edges of the gathering. Beyond the laughter and petals, beyond the warmth of the crowd, she glimpsed a figure standing just outside the gates. Dark suit rumpled, posture stiff, face pale with something between shame and envy. He didn't step forward. He didn't speak, but his presence was undeniable, a shadow against her sunlight. Emily's hand tightened in Daniel's. She turned back to him, letting the joy drown out the ghost at the edge. A guest whispers, "Isn't that the man who left her years ago?" The joke returned, but the punchline changed. The reception hall glowed with candlelight, laughter spilling from every table. Plates clinked, glasses sparkled, and the band struck a joyful tune that carried through the open doors into the warm eve. Emily twirled in Daniel's arms on the dance floor, her gown brushing the polished wood, her veil pinned back to reveal a smile brighter than any chandelier. Guests clapped and cheered, their joy unrestrained. Rosa dabbed her eyes with a handkerchief, watching from her seat, pride radiating from her like sunlight. For Emily it felt like the crescendo of a symphony, every note of pain, every measure of rebuilding, all leading to this harmony of love. But just outside the glow, a shadow moved. Ryan lingered near the entrance, his suit wrinkled, his tie loosened as though he had dressed in haste. He pressed against the wall, eyes darting between security staff and the crowd. His jaw clenched when he spotted Emily laughing, her head thrown back, her hand resting against Daniel's chest. He muttered under his breath, "That should have been me. She was mine first." Gathering false courage, Ryan straightened his tie and pushed toward the door, but before he could step into the light, a firm hand landed on his shoulder. "Invitation?" the security guard asked flatly. Ryan scoffed, "I don't need one. I know the bride." "Name?" Ryan puffed his chest. "Ryan Cooper. Ask her. She knows me." The guard's brow furrowed. He had been briefed about one name, the ex who might try to show up. His grip tightened. "You're not on the list. You're not welcome." Ryan bristled. "I just want to talk to her." His voice rose, drawing glances from nearby guests. "She owes me." The guard cut him off, signaling to another staff member, "Escort him out." Two men flanked Ryan, steering him firmly away from the entrance. He struggled, his words slurring with desperation. "She owes me. She wouldn't be here without me. I made her who she." Guests near the door exchanged uneasy looks. A woman whispered, "That's him. The one from the story." A man shook his head. "Pathetic." Inside, the music covered most of the commotion, but Emily caught the movement through the open doorway. For a fleeting moment, her eyes met Ryan's, as he was dragged backward. His face was pale, twisted with rage and humiliation. Her chest tightened, not with fear, but with clarity. This was the man who had once laughed at her tears, who had tossed her aside like trash. Now he was being escorted out of her wedding, powerless, irrelevant. Daniel followed her gaze, squeezing her hand. "He doesn't matter," he murmured. Emily turned back to him, nodding. "No, he never did. Not really." The music swelled again, and the crowd pulled them back into celebration. Rosa joined them on the dance floor, laughing as Daniel spun Emily in a circle, her gown fanning like a wave of light. For the first time, Emily felt the last piece of her old life slip away. The gas station, the waiting, the shame gone. What remained was love, family, and a future she had built on her own terms. Still, she couldn't deny the strange finality of seeing Ryan like that, reduced to a whisper among guests, a warning of what bitterness becomes when left to fester. She leaned into Daniel as the band shifted into a slower song, her heart calm, her body swaying with his. Around them, laughter and joy carried on. unbroken. She steps into the dance floor, radiant. He left me at a pump. I left him in the past. 1 year later, the highway stretched out beneath a warm summer sun. The same cracked road that once carried her into despair now led Emily toward peace. Daniel's hand rested on hers as their car hummed steadily. Rosa's favorite quilt folded neatly in the back seat. "Are you sure about this?" Daniel asked gently, glancing at her. Emily smiled faintly, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "I need to see it one more time, not as a victim, but as me." Minutes later, the old gas station came into view. Its paint was more faded, the neon signs sputtering half dead, but the pumps still stood, rusted guardians of her past. Daniel parked, and together they stepped out, their fingers intertwined. The air smelled faintly of fuel and asphalt, sharp, familiar. Emily inhaled, steadying her. The last time she had stood here, she was 19, clutching a suitcase, her heart shattered. Now, she was a wife, a leader, a woman whole. She walked slowly to the pump, her hand brushing its cold surface. For a moment, she saw her younger self sitting on the curb, eyes raw from holding back tears. She almost wanted to reach through time and hug that girl, whisper, "Hold on. Better days are coming." Daniel's voice pulled her back. "What are you thinking?" Emily turned, her eyes glistening but steady. "That he left me empty here. And somehow, that emptiness made room for everything I have now." Daniel cupped her cheek, kissing her forehead tenderly. "You turned ashes into fire, Emily. You made your own life." She leaned into him, smiling. "And you filled me whole." They stood together in silence, the past no longer heavy, but distant, like an old scar that no longer hurt when touched. Before leaving, Emily pulled a small notebook from her bag. She scribbled a line across the page, her handwriting firm and sure. "Some jokes make you laugh. His made me strong." She closed it, slipping the notebook back into her purse. With one last glance at the pump, she let go. Daniel opened the car door for her, and as they drove away, sunlight spilled across the cracked pavement, washing it golden. Emily didn't look back this time. Her story had started there, but it no longer lived there. Emily journals, "Some jokes make you laugh. His made me strong."